This is going to be a situation. So I'm going to start off with McRaven. So McRaven had jackass has been spraying fucking musk in my apartment, and I noticed at first I thought it was just like old towel, and I was like, shit doesn't smell that way. And so first off, clean my clothes, put it on my dirty clothes, and that's why I was about to snap, and it freaked him out that I actually was going to kill the kid. And yes, I was going to kill him. And so they did it again. This time I noticed it, and they sprayed it on all over the place. This is another harassment. And McRaven and the whole idea, it still fits into that pattern of where bigots, because he's a bigot, he's a southern bigot, and so is this Gavin dude, or whatever the fuck his name is. Just like what's his name? Just like Hammett. As we now know, bigots are nothing more than psychopaths, and psychopaths are nothing more than a 1-year-old child in their development. Psychopaths, narcissists, and the cluster bees, and so their whole thing is opposite day, as I call it. They're an externalized self. They aren't really people. They are PD and racism. Here's what I'm looking for. They're just an id externalized person. They externalize their internal hatreds. So they put this musk in, and that's what was creating, because I'm so mellow, they don't know how to deal with any other emotion besides their own, with hate, except for hate. It's the only emotion that they have. It's only, they don't really exist as people. And so now that I've, figured this out, because I'm so, my natural tendency is to be absolutely chill, and that drives them nuts. They can't handle a non neurotic, because they're neurotic people, or whatever they are, because they're not really human beings. So this is another attack by McRaven and the 1%. Now here's the thing. You have Dr. Dre and Jay-Z. They're gangbangers. They're still gangbangers. The guy beneath me in 110 or 120 is here to assassinate me. Then you got two over, I think it's 228, the Russians. Then you got this Gavin dude who's illegally running as a mercenary, who's illegally, working for McRaven. And then it's being illegally done by the President of the United States because they're joint, and so he's not doing this with the Joint Chiefs, or if he is doing this with the Joint Chiefs, all of this is illegal. And McRaven's going to say, well, you can't prove it. I already have proven it. And the other thing is, then they're trying to, well, manage me. I own my name. I own my brand. Since now, it's, as I said, they can't state that it's a legal thing they're doing. They're going to, the only thing they can say is what I said about some of the training I went through when I was at Damnick, which is actually on my DD214. So McRaven and Stavridis and the Admiralty of the Navy has been filling it up with Southern bigots or bigots in general. Because of these bigots, we've lost all of the all of Africa and the like, because these people are going to look. They're not. Their whole structure of thinking, all these bigots, their whole structure of thinking is how they set up the South and what they've done to black African Americans, where black African Americans, if they're not straight, where they've elevated the gay folks to destroy the cisgender black African American males, remove the fathers from the homes, destroyed manufacturing in the United States, shipped it off to China, and then they're still squeezing, and then they squeezing these jobs, and then they're blaming it on the black folks. And meanwhile, they're squeezing up all the capital. Now, McRaven and Stavridis have illegally, because even if I was, quote, going to jail, they've illegally been monitoring my place. And then when I'm doing my personal, what is it? Well, I guess religious thinking. That's the reason I sprayed this shit with the fucking, with the, sprayed the musk in my apartment. So it affects, so everything's about associations. So if you have a negative association with something that's positive, then you negative, then they're always trying to overload your parasympathetic nervous system, because that's what psychopaths do, because they really don't have, they have to externalize themselves because they're so shame wounded they don't have a self. As I said, they're just an id externalized personality. So you have Dr. Dre and Jay-Z believing that so McRaven brings Dr. J and Jay-Z, say, oh, we're protecting when they're really not. What they're doing with the gangbangers is protecting this idiot, this Ty Briscoe, who's moving money, who's moving drugs and stuff from Mexico and shit. And then you have Miss Jenna Lewis, who's nothing known to be just nothing more than a trust funder who is a drug addict, a lifelong drug addict, because that was her mom as a drug addict. Then you have Holly Adams doing the same thing. And then the Kim Kardashians doing the same shit. All of it creating this structure within the with not just African American, within culture in general, of devaluing and destroying the families and destroying everything within the absolute culture of America. And then blaming it on black folks when it's actually persons like BlackRock and the like. So right now, their main thing is, what they're freaking out about is Her Majesty apparently raised me up to a dukedom. And King Charles III is trying not to do it. But the problem is by going against that, he's attacking the Constitution of the United States. At the same time, he's overthrowing his own crown. Well, actually, him, and mostly with the Queen's consort Camilla doing all of this. Now, growing up in the South, there's always this thing about the South will rise again, the South will rise again. This is bullshit. The South, this is the South's opportunity to rise again, so to speak. The South is fascism. Trump is the symptom, not the disease. Now, the situation is, okay, where the Democrats are too feckless to actually take on and actually use the 14th Amendment. And one of the things that's going on that McRaven is doing with all this bullshit is trying to say, well, you got to do this, and then you do this, and he's trying to manage me into this, and you're going to do that, and then trying to gain control over the contract I have with Her Majesty. That's unacceptable. First off, as a Duke, there's no way in hell I'm going to allow you to do that. Second off, just as a citizen of the United States, you can definitely go fuck yourselves, because everything you're doing is illegal. And McRaven has now gotten himself to believe that he is above the law. He's corrupted the district attorney. He has the persons over at RPM Now, which are the people that I rent from. The owners, same shit. Trade Pro Academy, raised the rates, same thing. Ron LeGrand, he has to figure out if he's going to be a bigot, or if he's a bigot and a traitor, or if he's going to be a patriot. You know, did a new course about on the phone. Probably used the some of the writings that I did when a couple months back. So their whole goal is to get me out of this little thing, and then anytime somebody says this is who you are, or tries to define, for instance, last week I said, I finally was like, you're not going to use my name, and then I get something from Alex Caro from, oh, you're not seeing it right. At that moment, that was a gaslight. You don't tell somebody what they should not see or should see within their name and who they are. At that point, that tells me everyone's trying to tell me what I'm going to do. First time is Mick Madison, who's also one of Jay-Z's proteges. When was writing up about writing up because they actually let me know that they're still watching my fucking monitor illegally, and then putting it on online illegally against my First Amendment rights. You know, it was like, what are you doing? You're trying to say you shouldn't, and I didn't put anything up there, but I put it into my plan. So once I'm dead, it goes after all of these people because what they're trying to make the association is only straight cisgender men who are men are supposed to be Caucasoid or the gangbanger, is it thieves or whatever, or felons. Because if all these people around me have gone to jail, almost all of them, I've never been to jail. Hell, I haven't had a parking ticket in decades, or even a speeding ticket. Which, of course, now that I say that, they'll try to do something like that. See, McRaven's and Stavridis are trying to cover up the fact that they attacked me while I was in the Navy, and then they find out that and the person they put in, which is Robert Hammett, is nothing. And besides him, are all traitors, all more to all are more loyal to the Southern BS and fascism and these corporations than they are to the Constitution. You see this with this neoliberalism, which is nothing more than conservatism, which is the exact same thing, which is nothing more than a form of fascism. Different flavors of the same coin. Now, the thing that they did as far as his last midterms. Now, have a master's degree in entertainment business, which is pretty much to make it easier is how to take intellectual property and slap a business around it. My main thing is if I do decide something is consulting, my other thing is internet marketing. My main consulting vibe is branding, brand storytelling, while being entrepreneurial brand storytelling. Privately trained myself in real estate and other types of, so I get the whole process from bottom to top of business, entrepreneurship. So they're trying to steal all of my ideas from machine learning to how the human mind works, which I've shown as far as narcissism. I've extended Freud and Jung's structure to explain the behavioral systems of how these cluster B as DSM-5, I think it's 5 or 6, whatever the fuck it is now. DSM manual psychology has shown, but I take it from a Jungian perspective, and I've been doing this for years. McRaven is a psychopath, and he's been placing psychopathic seals within psychopathic and narcissistic, and making sure and actually putting his finger on the scales. So the people who are getting through aren't actually that good. They're just psychopaths or narcissists. And they're almost all Caucasian. There has near, especially within the officers' ranks. And when there wasn't one, he pushed him out, which was Admiral Losi, an Air Force Academy graduate. The entire admiralty of the Navy is filled with bigots, or as they say, Aries type, which is, it's funny when you think about Aries type. If you're looking at the god of war, it's split into Ares and Athena. And if you remember reading Robert Greene, the Greeks, Athena, which is the masculine idea of war, which is thinking and not just be a brute. And the funny thing is, the feminine idea of war is being a brute. Psychopaths and narcissists are just hyper effeminate. Basically, McRaven's just a chick. And from looking at all of his attacks, he's also a pedophile, or he has pedophile tendencies. And I think the only thing I kept him in straight was actually being in the military. See, they attack and then externalize their attacks and then try to get you to disassociate or get the target to disassociate and everything. So by watching and studying what type of attacks they were doing, that was basically telling me who they are. Because they had to externalize themselves. And since I am not anything but I'm not them. I'm not as disgusting as them, and they're pathetic human. They're not, like I said, they're not human beings. They're projections of an id, better known as a mean demon. And since I'm not that, they have to try to keep my nervous system jacked up. But my natural state is so mellow, it's driving them absolutely bonkers. Now, the next thing is about paying me. Here's the situation. And I sent to Don, I said, hey, in agency, and I made sure I used that phrase, in agency. It means you do as my agent, do as I instruct. But I didn't realize, I guess Don was a gangbanger. Or is a gangbanger, because once you're a gangbanger, it's the gangs are over anything else. They have infected the entirety, apparently, of the black African American community. And now we're looking at it, it has been done on purpose, and they just keep falling for it. Destroying their culture, destroying their neighborhoods. As we said, this. Even though we have the gender, whatever, realistically, they have the Evic woman and the Adamic man, and then anything in between, and that depends on structures within the brain. Now the question is, are these structures? I haven't done any of the research. Are these structures there at birth, or do these structures happen at puberty? Maybe you're learning about that, whatever. But either way, the behavior is a lot of the. I don't. Even though all of these attacks that are going on to gay people are wrong, just from a purely enlightenment, each individual is an individual, which is actually completely unique in the format of humanity, because a lot of times these id-focused persons don't like other people being themselves. Don't like, because they can't externalize themselves unless they do so. So from having that point of individuals being individuals, the Constitution is written to put a kibosh on these id-focused individuals, non-individuals, or meme entities. And that was the great part of the Enlightenment. So what has been going on is, okay, Democrats did far better than expected in the midterms. Now, I wrote to Don, who's, as I now realize, is nothing more than a gangbanger, and without Kevin Samuels, which Kathleen Kennedy killed through metaphysical means, that's kind of hard to prove, but it was mostly every time I would do something positive, she would then put something negative out, and that actually what that does is it you have the universal or in this cultural consciousness back and forth, and then the other thing is if I was doing my work, I'd write, but now I won't let them know what I'm writing, and so she would actually do an opposite, and then that over time because as Kevin Samuels is trying to do the good thing and show the behavior of black African American women is so fucking toxic, which I'm going to get to in a bit. She's doing this whole thing and trying to amplify the gay folks whose behavior really sucks, quite honest with you. It's not the fact that you're gay, it's just that a lot of them, their behavior is so gaslighty and they're just shit. And that's why straight guys beat the crap out of them, even though it's wrong. But their behavior is just as wrong as well. Not all, mind you. Bad behavior is bad behavior. It doesn't matter who you like or who you don't like. But they're pushing this behavior set that is just horrible. It's disgusting. There's no other way. I'm not. And you have the right to exist, but your behavior also has the right to be checked. And they're doing this on purpose to tear apart the country. They've been taking money from China and and then undercutting us. Little things. Well, you can't put this in the movie. You can't put that in the movie. So they're doing all these things, and so the big corporations are just undercutting the United States. Elon Musk buying Twitter or whatever. They backed him to buy Twitter so he would destroy Twitter. And he's doing a good job of that. He's not going to be able to make that $1 billion payment. Then they'll take it over, kick him out, maybe bring him back into public, but it will not be the altruistic way that it originally was under Jack Dempsey. It'll be just the same thing that they did with the Wall Street Journal and turned it into pretty much a fascist rag. Like when the Wall Street Journal, once Rupert Murdoch bought the Wall Street Journal, it went from being, center right to just this very far right, but just a little bit to the left of Fox News and Fox Business. But because I used to get it, it went far right, which is fascism. Because it sits between two poles. True capitalism sits between communism and fascism. And right now it's pulled almost all the way to fascism. And McRaven and Stavridis are working towards that fascism. So here in the midterms, back to this midterm things, right? As a consultant, because that was what I do when I would decide to do something, is being a consultant or do real estate. Because they're watching my website and everything else, it's basically trying to steal how I do things, and I won't do it. That's a trade secret. And now they know, I can just hear their bullshit. It's not like and that freaks them out because they can't do that. They have to constantly keep pinging. And when they ping them, it's like, oh, you're doing that. You're being a piece of shit. So that's what you're telling me. That's cute. That's on level 1. And that's as easy as breathing. And that's why they put this Musk, which I have to get rid of, trying to get me out. And whatever. Because here's the thing. So I'll get back to that King Charles, but so they are. So the Democratic Party has used my likeness to win. They used everything. They used not much my likeness, but my strategy. But in Georgia, under with McRaven in Stradvitas, they told the black folks, oh, just go win by being black, which is exact opposite of what I told Stacey Abrams and Val Demings to do. They didn't do anything I said to do. Only person who did was Raphael Warnock. And they used my strategy over 50 states, and then McRaven did a little tactic of elevating the worst of the MAGA. And the real reason is they were trying to get the data so that way he can use that to then pull them into the Democratic Party when he decides to run for president. Then he countered what I was saying over in Georgia. So Stacey Abrams loses, and then they can say, because Stacey Abrams was being pulled by black women, namely Tiffany Cross, and the gangbangers, to maintain the structure of, because black women will attack cisgender men, and then they'll use the gay. First they'll use their women, and then they'll use the gays, and then they use the gangbangers. And then since there's no, and then white folk, then you have the Caucasians who use cops as attack vectors onto the black African community. So there is no, within the black African community, there isn't an intermediary for violence, i.e. the police officers. So then they become violent. Then in persons who are just working, they leave. Then they have a culture where if you have something, they have to take it because they're stealing from each other. It's pretty much just like a bunch of rats in a cage. It's that rat experiment, and then they're stuck in this jealousy loop. So the black African Americans are attacking me because, well, it's not my fault that, yeah, I'm an I'm an aristocrat. That was my original upbringing before my piece of crap sister-in-law came into the picture, is that of an aristocrat. Very formal. And it's about watching, even only for like 5-10 minutes, is that one squeaky chick, squeaky speaking voice, but she had a great singing voice, of Dre and whatever, back in the very beginning of that movie. And the reason I didn't want to watch it, I was like, is the woman's talking about don't make a man hit you. And it's like, and it hit me, that is the culture of black African American. That's the culture of the feminine. They push and push and push and push and push until the dude snaps, and then they view, and then there's all of this toxicity within the system, which I'll get to further elucidate in a bit. And persons like McRaven keep use black African American because they're externalizers, externalize their negativity on black African America. And this is what makes, one of the things that makes me, in his mind, the most dangerous, well, him and, all the bigots in general, the most dangerous person is because I'm not that. And then secondary is I'm an aristocrat. And now even more so, because Her Majesty raised me back up to my aristocratic roots, because I'm also what is it? What's the word? Because most people, it's where it is. Yeah, whatever. It's where fuck. I can have a passport from Great Britain, Jamaica, and United States. So By placing me as a duke, that's also placing me as a knight. But for that to happen, I have to save the Constitution. But to save the Constitution, we know that black African Americans are not going to show up. McRaven's and Stradvitas are, because they're not, are trying to keep me from getting my cash that the Democratic Party owes me for using my systems and for using my personality without my consent. Now, Don is playing the whole thing of being in an agency, not an agency, but thinking he's in brokerageship, which means he believes, and the bigot gangbangers believe that, oh, we control you. That's not going to happen. That's bullshit. And Jay Z in his last thing still, oh, you owe me. No, I wouldn't have had to have this situation if you guys weren't such pieces of shit. And no, they brought you in to kill me, not to owe you. So you owe me. And the thing about this Musk stuff, I noticed that because it smell, I clean up my laundry and then the jackass put it in again in my place. So I have to go find something to clean it up. And then they started again on the dude in 224, and then started up with their attacks, the harassments. So what they want me to do, which they didn't expect me to, because as I said, if I'm going to jail, they're gonna die. There's no ifs, ands, or buts to it. And then had old boy, the guy in 234, speaking for McRaven, so about you do that, well, it's gonna kill me. I'm like, well, fine then, good. You've just made my logic even more sound, because I ain't letting that little kid get away with shit. And I'm sure as hell I'm not going to let McRaven or Stervitas get away with anything either. So King Charles, because King Charles is working with McRaven and Stervitas, they're trying to overthrow the Constitution. Because if the Democrats, which pretty much are feckless shits, do not bring Trump in, because here's the thing: everyone's talking about is Trump going to be indicted? Blah blah blah. Garland can't bring Trump in until Congress does. Congress is by the Constitution has jurisdiction and authority over the former president in this matter. And since Congress and the January 6th committee is so weak, such a shit backbone. Now, what McRaven will try to do is switch it and say, "Oh, I'm trying to get you." They was going to do this anyways, so it's not trying to get me to do anything. He's actually trying to stop me from going, or to put it into a box where, "Oh, we're just making," which is brand theft. So it's the poor person. Only problem: this poor person isn't poor. There's a difference between broke and poor. I was just doing minding my own damn business, building my business so I can just go snowboarding. And once I realized people were watching my shit, and there was a specific way that I want to do it. And then you have and because I know exactly what I want to do, it's like Robin Hatfield. So she's going to probably try to click on this. She's a public figure, YouTube, so therefore I can speak about a public figure. Because the last time she tried to play some bullshit and hit the uh, hit the thing on the YouTube and whatever the YouTube strike, She's a public figure. She is a public teacher at the University of Texas. And she does public speaking. So she's a public figure. She's trying to get me to move to Texas. Why the fuck would I want to move to that shithole? Especially around Bastrop. It's just hot as fuck. No fun. It just sucks. I have known what I want to do with my life. And it despises, and that is the thing that bigots hate about me more so than anything, that I go live my life not stuck in some fucking twisted thingamabobber part, in some hood that I've never lived in or generationally ever would live in, and that I also come from a line that puts me in the 1% of the globe, both educationally and also as a bloodline. Actually, 0.01%. Basically, they want to be me, but they can't be me. But then also their bigotry drives them nuts, and it makes their head explode. And all of this, yes, I do have data. It is not just me pointing fingers. All the videos beforehand, as Her Majesty stated, she'd like to be a fly on the wall. When the Americans figured this is all the things they've been laughing at are actually true. So it's like another thing is, Bob Iger, his whole thing of coming out of retirement, because I guess they thought they were going to sell my likeness and everyone thinks I'm going to go work for Disney. I'm not working for anybody. I'm an entrepreneur and a capitalist. The syndication is I decide how I want to run that business. And the syndication is designed to actually help small businesses, help put technology, help build and advance humanity through private equity. But the thing is, unlike the private equity firms that are just vulture capital, we're actually, this is more built like a venture capitalist firm, but not with all of the negativity designed to squeeze and destroy the working class. It's actually build the working class and make a lot more money. And then the funny thing is, from the way, the perspective of how it was designed, it actually gives, King Charles is too silly to see it, and Camilla's more worried about this whole power grab and destroying the royal family because she's getting off on it. She's getting off on how much what she's doing to King Charles's brothers and sisters, and then what she's doing to Prince Harry and what she's doing to Prince William, and then Kate and Prince William with their racism, as was seen with when they went to the Caribbean, are too blind to notice. Bigotry and racism is quite hilarious. It doesn't allow for people to see what's really going on. It's like you have this dude Gavin, he can't get past his bigotry, and he's going to end up dead for it. And he's going to go, "Oh, are you threatening me?" Yes, because you're threatening a royal of Great Britain. You're harassing me. You're illegally entering in my apartment. And yes, I have proof. And you're doing an agency to Strivitas, Admiral retired Strivitas and Admiral McRaven retired, because to do this on U.S. soil, this is not a training exercise. This is, you're trying to assassinate me. And McRaven goes, if I wanted to assassinate you, would have been dead already. No, not with this situation going on. And the thing is, if you do assassinate me, you start World War III, which is what they want, actually. And guess who's going to go to that war? It isn't, oh, they're just going to send all the black folks. No. They're going to send any working class person. And if you have a job, you're a working class. Doesn't matter if it's a white collar job or a blue collar job. And then use that, just like Palpatine in Star Wars, to become a dictator. Because by Congress not upholding the 14th Amendment and not upholding the Constitution in general and impeaching the former president, the Constitution by precedent is no longer in play. Just as the Magna Carta by precedent, because King Charles will not uphold the contract between myself as the state of Great Britain, of Jamaica and Great Britain and the Commonwealth, and Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth the Second, as sovereign, because the contract was between the sovereign and the state, which is the exact same thing as the first contract of the Magna Carta was a contract between the sovereign and the state. This what so this makes King Charles thinks that he is a can be a tyrant and he has full power and control over Parliament, even though everyone's acting like it's all good. He knows better. But the problem is, Her Majesty from him made sure that both are connected. Save the Constitution, the Magna Carta is the same. So, by working with Strivitas and Murdochs and the Mercers and all this to overturn the Constitution, he is now in fact overturning the Magna Carta and also working to overturn the EU. All done with the help of Putin and Xi, as they're watching the West implode, because they know that most, and then black Americans, are not going to have the guts to stand up. So I've pretty much written them off. And then if they're going to try to do anything, they're going to say, oh, we were just, when I do, because I'm going to do what I got to do at my timeline. And then all of a sudden, there's supposedly all this money is being made or whatever, and then they're going to come up. Troy Duvall and Disney and whoever is going to come. Oh, you got to sign this. And you can go kiss my ass. First off, you used my rights of my publicity without my signature and without my consent. It doesn't matter what happens, even if the Joint Chiefs or sending me to jail or whatever. I still get to own my rights to my publicity. And my rights to privacy, which have completely I say gotten rid of, but that's not the word. But the word, because all this fucking shit in here. So, and this appears to be the Democratic Party as far as stealing my rights to my publicity, which means that's the President of the United States and the Vice President, along with, of course, Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger. Oh yeah, the thing about Bob Iger, I was like, coming back in and kicking out Chapek. Chapek was actually getting better. Bob Iger first originally when Chapek took over, he got all jealous because him and Kennedy were kind of being like a dyad of evil. Chapek Iger didn't understand, and still doesn't understand or they understand it to a degree, but they're both psychopaths and the narcissistics, cluster Bs, id focused personalities. Chapek, who's a fan, he's like, oh, okay, sees what's going on. He's listening to some of the things I'm saying. He's rebuilding the brand, more people focused. Still, because he has hedge funds, he has to squeeze, but it's not as just purely BS that Iger was, which is all psychopathic. And you hear this from the niece of Walt Disney and the Walt Disney family. They don't have, unlike the Fords, they didn't keep control over the company. That's not what they family that what Disney is becoming is not what Walt Disney wanted. So Iger, Chapek's coming out, and then Iger kicks Chapek out to feed his own ego. It's going to be like, oh, you're going to learn under me. He goes, fuck himself. I want nothing to do with him. And then you have to. I don't have to do jack. I'm a duke. It's the other way around. I can't allow that. And it's just like with Dr. Dre and Jay Z and the Kardashians thinking, "Oh, you'll do what we tell you to do." No, you represent the criminal element, and that's the other thing that Rick Raven's trying to do is create that association. All black folks are criminals when he's being a criminal. That's the whole externalization thing. Because if you just in pure logic, if you remove that all and there exists one that is not, it completely destroys the narrative that they're trying to create. Now, the other day, the toxicity of black Americans. There's this person. Now, she had she goes. They actually send her to England because she's black and she's supposed to be close to me, but she's not. I've always found her to be toxic. So her dad had bought a couple of houses and different things, and I had stated it. Most black folks would kind of find me strange, but they eventually would kind of sort of come around. But she's just so toxic. I've always kept her psychologically at a distance. So it's a gaslight, and I said I didn't want to do it. Show what, but screw that. But then what she did is I'll come to that in a second. What she did is first. So what she does, she puts out this post, and this post states, "Men just don't understand how scary it is to be a woman." Now I know, and she has her avatar in front of a blackboard, hand on the chin, blackboard thing, so it's based, so that's an implied statement. It's a thought, deep thought. But it's a gaslight, and I know it's a gaslight. And I know that she's sending this as a bite. And I'm like, all right, I'll bite. I'll see what happens. And she goes through the standard gaslight BS. So I said, masculine protection, because before we even begin with that, when we think of that, we immediately no man worth his salt, and woman, they assume all men are supposed to protect women, or we wouldn't have these statements in our language if it wasn't, I think that was one of the main things that happened within the Syria refugee crisis. The men went north and they left their women behind, which was like, that was just weird. But in Western culture, in general, save the men and women and save the women and children, right? So I said, made it perfectly clear. Masculine protection is a resource. Because your life is a resource. A man's life is a resource. What are women, when you hear them chit-chatting? Well, how do you get your man to do this? And he needs to do that. as soon as a man stops doing stuff, women don't stick around in general. They dip because he's quit providing a resource. Women start making the numbers don't lie. You can talk all your crap you want. As soon as a woman makes more money than her husband, it's almost 80 to 90% she dips. As opposed to sticking it out and still seeing that other more value. There's other resources that her man could provide, and also sticking out and keeping to your word. But women aren't trained to keep to their word, aren't expected to keep to the word. They're expected to give, well, I just moved this emotion, so I guess it doesn't matter anymore. And then that's why you have these gay folks doing the same shit because they're, especially the gay men. Situate, and then and it's it's ridiculous, and this is why men are revolting. They're like, no, we're not doing this anymore. We're not putting up with this. We're not busting our ass having a kid with a chick who then dips at the first sign of whatever. Where their, divorce rates are now in the Black African American community 90%. Caucasian community, that's going up. Hispanic community, that's going up. And men are just saying, no, we're not doing this. I'm not busting my ass and then lose everything for some chick. So I went into going back to this argument. So I said that, and she immediately does her gaslighty thing, which is the gaslight pattern of something something, not really meaning it was just an emotive vomit personally. Then some simp comes in and starts simping, and I said something about basically it was over his head, and then he goes, "Oh, word salad." And I went, you know what? Once a person starts doing an ad hominem attack, they're pretty much useless. And so I quit communicating. I quit wasting my time with this person. Actually, I'm about to probably block her. And because then the next thing she does does the pigeon checkers. So, which is all of her posts are all, oh, look how cute and sweet and I am innocent. So we're gonna go through. We're gonna find this person. She changes her name. So let's see if we can find this. This is, see, now that's pigeon checkers after the argument. See, and then she made sure, everything's all the whole blackety bliggity black, which is I find just obnoxious and annoying, and pretty much weak. So this is where I'm talking about. So 35 comments, and it was, it's so dangerous, whatever. Where is it? And here it is. My research, right? And then comes the simps. And so this is what she could not understand. Trying to run from the responsibility, hold the Constitution, the emotional responsibility from themselves and others, walk away from that responsibility with a changed emotion set from the original fear, which is what they're attempting to cover up. It's basically emotion object. He couldn't understand what I was talking about. She knows that I know what I'm talking about. And then here he's talking about that, and then she gives him a simp card. This is what I said, an implied statement is a logical statement. Right? So she's doing all this, and then the original conversation for Mr. Nathan into a flying monkey with positive reinforcement. The logistical solutions architect of 2 days, as I could understand. That's fine. I've been doing, what is it? recursive theory for 3 decades. So, and so they're sitting there babbling, and I just quit. I was like, I'm not in the mood for dealing with these idiots because she knows everything that's going on, and this is a part of that gaslight. And then she went in, and then so everyone's all simping, but none of these persons who, yeah, but the thing is, they're talking about all this with random men and all of that, but it was still not about the answer about what I said. My resources, my choice. Why should I offer protection if for that protection, all that men are getting in by the numbers? And now this is all you see. All this. So look at this. This is pigeon checkers. Oh, everything's all good. And click. I fooled him. And see, there's a little more. That's her little thing. But that is the toxicity of that men are talking about, and men have had enough of. And women don't want to own up to it. And this is exactly what Putin is exploiting within the culture of the United States. And this is what Stradvitas and Trump and McRaven are trying to maintain that cultural structure because they're incompetent outside of it. South will rise again. And black folks are keeping that structure, and as opposed to using the 14th Amendment and those who want a dictatorship. As the conservatives are, and then trying to continue pilfering the Commonwealth. And that's why all these countries, well, originally they thought, we're dipping, dude. I'm like, fine, go have at it. I ain't not trying to be not trying to be anybody's king, dude. You have at it, go for it, brah. And then I stated, yeah, for those countries that are part of the Commonwealth and have a governor general, you know, elect your governor general. Not my circus, not my monkey, man. You go do you, man. And King Charles is trying to overthrow a stable situation, which means also trying to overthrow the Constitution of the United States of America and the EU and the construction of the EU. China is then going to come in and take full advantage of that, which will start World War III. No, don't get me wrong. I think sometimes Lady Markle, not understanding, she tried to play this thing about stating once it goes, "Oh, manners make a man," because I'm very polite, but she didn't understand my original upbringing before, the 0 to 6, and because I still have my original voice, I didn't lose who I was because my mom had my brother and sister lose their accents when they came to America. I still have my memories as they were created. That's the power of your language. And my memories, that 0 to 6, is that of an aristocrat, even though I had no idea. But I was still raised first and foremost, not lower class, not middle class, aristocratic. Because why? My mom is an aristocrat. Because my grandfather is an aristocrat. Then my father, even though I really didn't know him, he comes from multiple generational education. And this just pisses off regular European Americans like there's no tomorrow because their whole thing is always the person's melanated, then they're supposed to be this. And that's why Her Majesty said, "You protect my family, I'll protect yours." So she was doing so when Lady Markle's saying the words out of that movie Kingsman. What they were really doing, what she didn't really understand, it was the whole idea of you taking a London dude with a Cockney accent and see if you can dress him up and understand how to be a gentleman for the crown and the king, or in this case, in that case, when it was queen. Formal is my first language. Shakespeare is my first understanding. But as my mom dealt with more and more black African Americans, and my just horrible sister in law, very toxic sister in law, started doing the exact same thing, we started to lose that as a family. And it affected, and I walked away from my family because I was protecting my niece and my nephew from my toxicity of my mom's abuse. This is basically Biden's agenda right here. That's the other thing. For the most part, I wrote Biden's agenda. The big picture. Now, of course, you have very smart people who know how to write it all, this and this. But from the big picture, this is pretty much Biden's agenda. And this is why the other thing is that what McRaven was trying to do, and once McRaven made this error, my duty, my oath is to the Constitution and the President of the United States, as far as I'm concerned, as an employee. Once what they were trying to, Democrats are going to try to do is keep this BS going, and then they're not paying me, they're stealing my likeness. Apparently I'm making all this money, but I don't want their money because I have the contract with Her Majesty the Queen, and that's worth way more than what anything they can give me. Because whatever they give me or try to give me, which is no thing that's given, goes away from what I want to do with my life. And pretty much because of the situation, I'm pretty much dead anyways. So I'm gonna damn sure gonna do whatever I want. And then McRaven just said, "No, you're not." And I'm like, "Well, watch me, motherfucker." Yeah, bigoted motherfucker. You traitorous shit. You traitorous bigot. So everything for the last 2 years is in this mind map. And then McRaven keeps getting the whole world to gaslight me. Then even so let's say, okay, Democrats get a freaking spine. They actually bring, walkers on Tuesday. So Georgia runoffs on Tuesday. Wednesday they subpoena Mike Pence. Thursday and Thursday through the next week after, they go out and forcibly bring Trump and Pence in. None of this. Well, Congress has the ability to have inherent contempt to bring the president in. But he's going to make such a mess. Most people, they're too terrified to do so. And black African Americans are, they're too cowardly to show up. Working class white Americans, well, they see no reason anyways. Because they think everything's all good while they're being squeezed. I say right now, I appreciate Short of Old, but I need my money. Because the whole goal of them sitting there, because when somebody thinks they own you, whatever you enter in as, that's how they're going to act as. Right now, McRaven and Stravitas think they own me. while they're illegally breaking into my apartment, putting this deer funk all over the goddamn place, stealing my shit, stealing my name, stealing uh, my trade secrets. Then think, well, we want to work with you. No, you're not. You can go fuck yourselves. I want nothing to do with you. And if you think, when once I have my capital, and especially once I have my dukedom, you fuck with me, I will bring the full. Actually, I still can already because I'm royal blooded, and they know. And now MI6 and MI5 know who I am. And King Charles keeps, and then, well, King Charles is now purposely overturned, trying to overturn the Constitution. They are, they're loyal to the crown, not the king. And the crown is trying to overturn and destroy the country and turn himself into a tyrant. Or I should say, the throne is trying to turn himself into a tyrant. Because, and you see all the pictures of the queen consort with that freaking hideous duper's delight smile as she is having Charles squeeze the family and waiting for once they snap, because that's what's coming. CPTSD is going to happen, and then they're going to snap. And then Prince William's like, I don't know what's going on, and Kate Middleton knows exactly what's going on. She put a little thing out, I'll save the children, when she's saying it's always opposite day. So if they say something opposite, then they're doing. If they say something publicly, they mean the exact opposite in private. It's not always. Now they're going to try to change it up, but for the most part, people of that type of thinking. And all throughout history, anytime somebody you can see a tyrant becoming a tyrant or doing a tyrant, they always kill that person if they have the power to do so. Now, will Speaker Pelosi hold the vote to have Trump and Pence be held in inherent contempt and then send the sergeant at arms go pick his ass up, backed by the Department of Justice? Of course not. Because the whole thing they're trying to do, that McRaven and Stavridis are trying to do, is kind of wash this under the rug, because they know everything I said about the Constitution not being out of precedent is correct. So that means the next president is technically a dictator. Trump becomes president, he is technically a dictator. He doesn't have to listen to Congress, because Congress did not hold him to an account. And if it's not Trump, whoever else is. It's Kamala Harris, whoever. And now, while some might still try to play like it's all going on normal, which is what you do, they'll boil the frog slowly, but they'll end up doing the thing that G did. So I need my money. Stacey Abrams, you lost Georgia because you didn't listen to what I said. And you knew it. Every time you do an interview, you kind of pop up, and you knew that what you were doing was wrong. You knew that gaslighting me was wrong. And you got your ass handed to you because you listened to Tiffany Cross and the gangbangers. And this whole blackety black, black, black. And you see Monique Savage, you're doing her little thing. But that behavior is why you lost. Because you didn't go out and truly go after just by the time you're finished going after all the black folks, 90% you still lost. Can't blame the black men, which is what they're trying to do. And the whole idea was, well, they lost, so your idea didn't make sense. Well, that's what they're trying to say to me. But then use everything I said as a national strategy, which kept them from losing, from kept didn't hold it, but held it just enough to where they really can't get anything done except make a lot of noise. They by the Republicans. This is harassment's going to stop, one way or the other. Either I'm dead or he's dead. They're dead. Because what they're trying to do is to incite violence in me, so I defend myself. Because as soon as they put this deer musk in here, it definitely fucks up your head. They had the psychopath, he start attacking, start doing his bullshit. And then it's being done in conjunction with the the police in Grand Junction, Colorado, and the district attorney, all illegally. So how can we as Americans say, oh, the rest of the world about rule of law when we won't follow the rule of law ourselves? That's why we're hypocrites. Don't even, and that's what they're showing. We're losing power. We might have the money power and all that, but we're losing the soft power. I was watching this thing on Engineering Explained, and he was talking about ridiculousness of two. He did two different things on hydrogen engines and how ridiculous they are. Blah blah blah. Both were experimental mules, four-stroke internal combustion engine hydrogen engines. But it's that arrogance to not listen to anything else, to not see a bigger picture. Those are intermediary positions. So if you hydrogenate fuel 20%, how many moles do you need? Do you have to turbocharge it? Now you've created a system where you have a commodity of hydrogen. Then at the point where hydrogen cannot be held within the fuel, or it's escaping too much, what is it, 10, 20, 30%, whatever that number is, the hydrogen bonding breaks, you're still cleaning up the air, less emissions, and now you have a supply chain for hydrogen. Then you can switch that supply chain through legislation into other types of EVs, either a hydrogen fuel cell or just using hydrogen uh, as a power generation source. But arrogance and small-mindedness leads to stupidity, as you saw with that argument. It's dangerous for us. So an implied statement is a real statement. As I said, I've been doing recursion for 20 some odd years, almost 30 years now. So 20, 25, 6 years. And if to explain recursion, or that is, there was I remember in high school literature class, was taught just told this story about, I think, this lady. It's just paraphrase it, where woman was looking for a wife for his husband, for her son, and so she put a needle on a bed and then stacked three other mattresses above. And then when a young lady would come by, she'd sleep on the bed, and they all had a great night's sleep, except for one. She was like, I just couldn't. I had a horrible night's sleep. Well, the recursion is the needle on that first. It's a lot more complicated than that, but easiest way is that needle. She was sensitive enough to notice that needle on the bed, and it made her, she couldn't sleep because of it. And that's the one that she had for her son. But The recursion is something below and how it manifests above. But I do that within language, being able to understand pre-linguistic toddlers all the way to the BS of a PhD in real time, and also understand conversations between people, even though I might be 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 nodal points away from them. I've literally had conversations. When McRaven threatened me with a guy in 234, that was a single nodal point threat, intermediary threat. Easy peasy. See, McRaven, Strivitas by first trying to get me from taking the Seaman to Admiral and taking the commission, and then McRaven for doing the equal opportunity and destroying my career, and then trying to cover their asses right now. Their time to use me was back then. Now I'm a free man, and I have my rights as a human being, and I have my rights as an American, and then I have my rights as a royal, and I will use all of those rights. And rights with responsibilities, I get it. Something that McRaven and it externalized people don't want. They don't do any. They do rights without responsibility. So I'm gonna get done with here. I'm gonna take a walk over to the district attorney, and we're gonna have a conversation. And they're gonna gaslight me, and I'm gonna make sure I record it. And I'm like, okay. Then I'm gonna write my. Sure as hell I ain't writing Lauren Boebert because she ain't gonna get shit. And I'm gonna write Speaker Pelosi, and then I'm gonna write Leader Schumer. And I know they're gonna not even gonna return, and they're gonna be full of bullshit, try to gaslight me through YouTube like they've been doing the last 2 years. See, because the Caucasians are too busy trying to overthrow the Constitution as it's written. They want to install either, as we know, either install the CSA Constitution, which is a bunch of BS, which essentially reinstalls slavery into the United States. And black Americans are just walking into it, working more, less than fucking gives a shit about black Americans. They're idiots. They're undereducated, and they're undereducated, and they're pretty much just they do what they're told. But it's the working class whites getting a smaller and smaller piece of the pie. But in order to get that piece of the pie back, they have to get over their bigotry. But then what Kathleen Kennedy and friends do is then to start throwing out these weird ass gay shit. And I'm sorry, they're allowed to exist. You're allowed to be gay as all you want, but your behavior, this gaslighting and acting all feminine and thinking that you don't have to have any responsibility, nah, not with that at all. Period. You're a citizen of the United States. You just don't get this freaking blah 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 and not have a responsibility and have to hold a responsibility for those actions. What now, as I've stated, are those guys who are completely treating gay folks and doing the shootouts and all that stuff. They're wrong too, no matter how bad the behavior of the gay folks is, or they're wrong for being bigots and thinking they have the right to to physically harm somebody. That's wrong as well. So it's not like I'm one-sided on this because it was like a couple of years ago. Just moved in. Dude was, I think it was a 2-4-3 over, so that's 226 or something like that. 224 was the dude was gay. I was like, all right, I can tell you're gay. That's cool. He comes up and I'm like, hey man, I'm straight. Please leave me alone. I appreciate it. But then he starts externalizing and starts doing all of his, doing the exact, what is it? Doing an RBT, reactive behavior targeting, and all this other shit. That's wrong. He has no right to do that. I have every right to then defend myself. And then two, my brand, Kathleen Kennedy, as I would say, dude does straight guys do black African American or melanated American male does something, she then brings out the gay guys. Melanated Americans step up to the plate, they then devalue it. That's how that game works. Do something, devalue. Do something, devalue. How do they do it? They do opposite day. You say A, well, they say B. You say B, well, they mean A. All that's it's like, and it's not really intelligent. They're not really all that smart. They put people in three different clusters: golden child, scapegoat, or invisible. Golden child is the person who does everything they think they're supposed to be, so they're a good little pet. Invisibles are the flying monkeys they're not being attacked, and the scapegoats are the ones who are actually human beings who have their own sense of self and that they're terrified of because they're actually pretty good at what they do. Because these type of people do not attack. They do not attack competent. They do not attack incompetent people. They attack the most competent. And they don't attack the persons who are attacking them. They always are. It's a. They always attack the person who should be trusted. Just like what Iger did to Chapek. Chapek was like he had just gotten like they adjust the board and said, yeah, you're doing pretty good. Iger sees what he's doing, kicks Chapek out. Then everybody was talking about all these Star Wars movies when actually that was Chapek. Where I had stated, hey dude, we use different here, here's a way of looking at slightly. It didn't do too much, but just enough to here you go, just enough so he can build the structure of what was going on, of how he wanted to move Disney into the next 10 or 20 years. But Iger couldn't get his super ego, and then he was also getting back with Kathleen Kennedy because he was kind of getting first. Because first when he left the first one 2 years ago, Kathleen Kennedy then tried to pull him in. He got all jealous. Put a thing in Hollywood Reporter. I told him, hey, Chapek, this is what's going on. He then separated. Then all of a sudden, things are going really well. Chapek's starting to get his groove, kind of thing. Some things are, people still, people are always going to complain, but he's starting to see, and you're at that very beginning where everything's kind of a messy. It takes about 4 to 6 years. First 2, 3 years, everything's going to be messy. But when does Iger show up? Kick him out. Right when all that messiness is going to turn into something. Then it takes advantage of it. 48 laws of power. It's not that like he was doing any, and that's the other thing that cluster Bs always do. Because the other thing was Kathleen Kennedy's getting her ass kicked. I'm just kicking her in the teeth. So now they're going to try to get the band together and try to do a dyad thing. Their bigotry keeps fucking with them. As I said, and then that's McRaven, Stavridis, these hedge funds. I terrify them. Even if it wasn't the whole thing with Her Majesty or anything, I am the most terrifying person to them. Because I live my life as I choose legally. And they have to put all black African American males, and I'm not black African American, I'm actually Jamaican American, but any melanated male, they have to state as being who they are, which are criminals. And if you have a melanated male archetype who's not a criminal or a gangbanger, then they would have to change up how they manipulate. And since they're externalized and they're bigots, they cannot manipulate anything else, because that means if they would have to see themselves, and they can, and that's the last thing they want to do. They want to externalize all of their negativity because their behavior sucks. They know if they did the behavior that they do, and all these Caucasians know that they know if they do the behavior that they do to melanated or other persons othering like Marjorie Taylor Greene, they know that behavior is unacceptable, and they also know they can't compete without it, which is the most important part. And the other thing is they're trying to keep me all tied in with Ukraine. I'm not doing it because they're going to try to dump it onto me. I'm like, nope. You guys want to start World War III? Go right at it. I'm going to do my thing with the Constitution. See what happens. I doubt anything will happen. And then they're going to, and you know, you know, will Speaker Pelosi bring it to the floor? Probably not. That takes courage. Democrats don't have courage. They're too worried about their donors. Were they going to uphold the Constitution? Probably not. They're too worried about the donors, and the donors want to overthrow the Constitution. That's why they brought him in. Dr. Dre, Jay-Z, are they have any moral courage? Of course not. They're gangbangers. Their first thing is to the gangs, not to the Constitution. Same with Don. Troy DeVault, he doesn't have enough courage. Pay me. Give me my money. It's not, and not afterwards. This is what we did, and we need you to. No. I ain't signing shit. I don't want your money. I don't want your freaking. Then you go into jail. Oh, that's fine. I'll go to jail. But I will own my rights to publicity, and then I'll sue you from there. And they'll probably try to put me in solitary confinement. Whatever. Everything that McRaven, Stavridis, and the Admiralty of the United States Navy has done is illegal. The Admiralty of the United States Navy is filled with a bunch of Southern bigots who want to overthrow the Constitution. And this is shown by their behavior. The SEALs are filled with nothing more than bigots, especially in the officers' ranks. Scott Monahan, like, thank you, I appreciate it, but this is bullshit. What McRaven is doing is bullshit. What Stavridis is doing is bullshit. This constant harassment is bullshit. Thinking that they're gonna own my person, nah, bullshit. Not having it. Jay-Z sending this person to assassinate me and then having the nerve to say, oh, it was because of me? Yeah, go fuck yourself. You're nothing but a gangbanger. You do your job, you keep the prisons filled. You're a moron and you do your job well. Putting out fucking music that sucks. As the one pastor said, was it White Mike? Why is it if you want to know how to kill somebody, you know where to go? That's rap music. That's all you are. You've destroyed this country. You've destroyed your own neighborhoods. You're talking about I got nothing for slavery, whatever. You're nothing but a bunch of pieces of shit. And I don't care if you don't like me. You wouldn't like me anyways. I wish everyone well. And take care.